The day is ending now, as it has ended for thousands of years along this quiet stretch of the Nile. The sun, which rose this morning over the eastern cliffs with such fierce brightness, is descending now behind the western hills, and the light that filled the sky with white heat has softened into something gentler. The air, which shimmered and wavered in the afternoon, has begun to cool. You can feel it now, this change, this gradual easing of the day into something softer and more forgiving. There is a garden here, beside the river. It is not a large garden, but it is carefully tended, and it has been here for many years. The walls that surround it are made of mud brick, dried in the sun and built thick enough to hold back the heat of the day and the dust that sometimes rises from the desert beyond. Inside these walls there are trees, date palms that rise tall and slender, their fronds moving gently in the evening breeze, and sycamore figs with broader leaves that rustle softly, a sound like quiet breathing. The garden belongs to a scribe, a man whose work is the making of records, the careful inscription of accounts and inventories and letters on sheets of papyrus. His name is not important now. What matters is this place he has made, this small and ordered world where green things grow beside the river, where the earth is dark and rich with water, where the light at evening falls in long, golden slants through the leaves. He is here now, in the garden, sitting beneath a simple pavilion that stands near the center of the enclosed space. The pavilion is made of wooden posts and a roof of woven reed matting that filters the last of the daylight into a dappled pattern on the ground below. There is a low table before him, and on this table are the tools of his trade, a palette of carved wood with 2 wells for ink, one black and one red, a pot of water for mixing and cleaning, and several reed brushes with their tips carefully shaped and split. Beside these tools are sheets of papyrus, some covered with neat columns of hieratic script, others still blank and waiting. The scribe sits on a cushion stuffed with straw and covered in woven linen. His posture is familiar to him, the position he has held for hours each day throughout his life. One leg folded beneath him, the other raised to support the sheet of papyrus as he works. But now, at this hour, he is not writing quickly. His movements are slow and deliberate. He dips his brush into the water, touches it to the cake of black carbon ink, and draws it across the papyrus with steady, even strokes. The sound of the brush on papyrus is very soft, a whisper of reed against plant fiber, a rhythm that matches his breathing. Around him, the garden is settling into evening. The heat of the day, which pressed down on everything with such weight and stillness, is lifting now. The air is moving, just slightly, carrying with it the scent of water and earth and growing things. The leaves of the date palms, high overhead, shift and sway, and the sound they make is like distant rain, or like the rustling of many garments, or like the turning of pages in some vast and unhurried book. Near the garden walls, where the trees are planted in long rows, there are channels cut into the earth. These channels are part of the garden's life, its daily sustenance. Water from the Nile flows through them, directed by small dams and gates made of mud and stone. Earlier in the day, when the sun was high, the water was released from a larger canal beyond the wall, and it flowed quietly through the garden, soaking into the soil around the roots of the palms and figs and the smaller plants that grow in the spaces between, lettuces and onions and herbs, whose names have been known here for generations. Now in the evening, a servant moves slowly along these channels, checking the level of water, adjusting a small dam here, opening a narrow gate there. He is an older man, his skin darkened by years in the sun, his movements economical and sure. He has done this work for a long time, and he knows the garden as well as he knows the rooms of his own small house. He bends down to scoop away a bit of silt that has accumulated at the mouth of one channel, and the water flows more freely. He straightens, moves a few paces along the row, bends again. His sandals make soft sounds on the damp earth, and occasionally he pauses to look up at the sky, noting the color there, the position of the sun, the first appearance of the evening star. The light is changing now, moment by moment. What was gold is becoming amber. What was amber is shading into rose. The western hills, which border the land of the living, and beyond which lies the vast necropolis, where the dead are laid to rest, are dark silhouettes against a sky that holds layers of color. Pale yellow near the horizon, then orange, then a deepening blue that seems to rise up from the east, like water filling a basin. In this changing light, another servant emerges from the house that stands at one end of the garden. The house is modest, built of the same mud brick as the garden walls, with small windows set high to keep out the heat and a flat roof where the family sometimes sleeps on the hottest nights. The servant carries a basket, and in this basket are several small oil lamps made of clay. These lamps are simple things, shallow bowls with a pinched spout for the wick, a handle for carrying. They have been filled with oil earlier in the day, castor oil pressed from seeds grown not far from here, and the wicks have been trimmed and cleaned. She moves through the garden with the familiarity of long practice, setting the lamps in places where they are needed. One on the table beside the scribe, one at the entrance to the pavilion, two more on low stands of stone near the paths that wind through the plantings. She does not hurry. There is time for this work, as there is time for all the small, necessary tasks that make a household function. When each lamp is in place, she pauses, takes a thin stick from her basket, and lights it from the glowing embers of a small brazier she has brought with her. One by one, she touches the flame to each wick, and one by one, the lamps come to life. The light they give is soft and warm, a golden glow that does not fight with the fading daylight, but seems to join with it, to blend into it. The flames are steady in the still air, barely moving, just a slight tremor now and then, a gentle pulse like a heartbeat. The scribe glances up as the lamp beside him is lit, and he nods to the servant in quiet acknowledgement. She bows slightly and moves on, completing her circuit of the garden, and when she is finished, she returns to the house, her footsteps fading into silence. The garden is quieter now. The servant who tended the irrigation channels has finished his work and has gone to sit for a moment on a bench near the eastern wall, where a vine of some flowering plant grows up and over the brick, its white blossoms just beginning to open as the day cools. He sits with his hands resting on his knees, his breathing slow and even, and he watches the river beyond the wall, visible through a gap where a gate stands open. The Nile is wide here and placid. The flood season ended some weeks ago, and the water has receded to its usual levels, leaving behind the rich, dark silt that makes this land so fertile. The surface of the river is smooth, reflecting the sky's colors, rose and lavender, and the first deep blue of coming night. There are boats on the river, a few fishing boats with their nets already drawn in, heading back to the villages upstream and down. The fishermen call to one another across the water, their voices carrying in the still air, but the words are indistinct, softened by distance into something almost musical, a pattern of sound without sharp edges. Closer to the shore, near the reeds that grow in thick stands along the bank, a heron stands motionless in the shallows. It is a gray bird, tall and elegant, and it has been standing there for some time, waiting with infinite patience for a fish to venture near. The scribe, glancing up from his work, can just see the heron through the trees. He watches it for a moment, admiring the stillness of it, the way it seems to be part of the river itself, as much as the water or the reeds or the mud. Then he returns to his papyrus, his brush moving again in those slow, steady strokes. The work he is doing now is the recording of the day's accounts. He is responsible for keeping track of the grain that has been harvested from the fields belonging to a nearby temple, and for recording how much of this grain has been distributed to the workers, how much has been stored, how much has been set aside for offerings. These are not exciting numbers, not dramatic tallies. They are the ordinary mathematics of life, the addition and subtraction that underlies the feeding of people and the maintenance of order. But he takes care with them, as he takes care with all his work. Each character is formed clearly, each line is straight, each column is aligned. There is satisfaction in this, a kind of peace in the precision of it. Above him, the first bats are beginning to fly. They emerge from crevices in the walls and from the eaves of the house, small dark shapes that dart and wheel through the air with remarkable agility. They are hunting insects, the moths and beetles and mosquitoes that rise from the river and the gardens as evening comes on. The bats make no sound that he can hear, only the faintest whisper of wings, a displacement of air. He has grown so accustomed to their presence that he barely notices them. But tonight, perhaps because the light is so beautiful, or because he is particularly tired from the day's heat, he pauses to watch them for a moment. These small creatures going about their nightly business with such focus and grace. The light from the oil lamps is stronger now, as the daylight continues to fade. The flames cast shadows that stretch and shift slightly, making the garden seem deeper, more mysterious, as though it extends further than it actually does, as though the darkness between the trees might hold other gardens, other quiet spaces, where the work of the day is ending and the rest of the night is beginning. From somewhere beyond the garden wall, from one of the neighboring houses, or perhaps from the village that lies a short walk to the south, comes the sound of a voice singing. It is a woman's voice, clear and unaccompanied, singing a melody that is both ancient and familiar. The scribe cannot make out the words, but he knows the song. It is one that the workers sing sometimes in the fields, a song about the river and the seasons, about the flooding and the planting and the harvest. The melody is simple, almost plaintive, and it floats on the evening air like the scent of the flowers that are opening in the garden, like the smoke from the lamps, like something weightless and yet present, something that fills the space without crowding it. He listens as he works, his hand moving in rhythm with the song, though he is not conscious of this. The brush dips and rises, and the ink flows onto the papyrus in neat, dark marks. There is something meditative about this work, something that allows his mind to rest, even as his hands remain busy. He is thinking of nothing in particular now, only of the shapes of the characters, the balance of the composition, the way the lamplight falls on the pale surface of the papyrus. His breathing is slow and deep, matching the pace of his movements, and he feels the tension of the day beginning to leave his shoulders, his neck, his back. The servant who lit the lamps returns now, carrying a wooden tray. On this tray is a simple meal, bread made from emmer wheat, still slightly warm from the oven, a bowl of lentils cooked with onions and cumin, a few dates, and a cup of beer, the thick, nourishing beer that is drunk with every meal in this land, brewed from barley and sweetened with a little honey. She sets the tray on a low stool beside the pavilion and withdraws without speaking, her presence as quiet and unobtrusive as the evening itself. The scribe finishes the column he is working on and sets down his brush. He flexes his fingers, which have grown stiff from holding the brush for so long, and he stretches his arms above his head, feeling the pull in his shoulders. Then he reaches for the bread, breaks off a piece, and dips it into the lentils. The food is simple but good, flavored with the spices that have been grown in gardens like this one for as long as anyone can remember. He eats slowly, without hurry, savoring each bite, and he drinks the beer in small sips, feeling its coolness spread through his chest. As he eats, the darkness deepens. The sky to the west is now a band of deep purple, fading upward into black, and the stars are appearing, first one, then a handful, then dozens, then hundreds, scattered across the vast dome of the sky like seeds scattered across a field. The scribe knows these stars, knows the patterns they make, the figures that the priests and astronomers trace among them. There is Orion, the great hunter, and there is the constellation they call the four-leg of ox. And there, low in the southern sky, is Sirius, the brightest star of all, whose rising heralds the flooding of the Nile and the beginning of the new year. But he does not think of these things tonight in any formal way. He simply looks up and sees the stars, and finds comfort in their presence, in their constancy, in the way they have looked down on this river and this land for time beyond measuring. The sounds of the garden are changing now. The daytime birds, which chattered and called throughout the afternoon, have fallen silent. In their place, the night birds are waking. From the reeds along the river comes the soft cooing of a dove, and from somewhere in the date palms above, the low repetitive call of an owl. The heron, which stood so still in the shallows, has moved on, and in the distance, perhaps a mile or more upstream, another heron calls, a harsh rattling cry that carries across the water and then fades into silence. The insects are louder now. There are cicadas in the trees, their pulsing drone rising and falling in waves, and there are crickets in the grass beneath the palms, their high, steady chirping forming a constant background to all the other sounds. These are the sounds that will continue through the night, the soundtrack to the hours of darkness, and they are as much a part of this place as the trees, or the water, or the stars. The scribe finishes his meal and sets the cup aside. He does not return immediately to his work. Instead, he sits quietly, his hands resting on his knees, and he allows himself simply to be here, in this moment, in this place. He feels the slight breeze on his face, the coolness of it, and he smells the night-blooming flowers that are opening somewhere in the garden, their scent sweet and heavy, mingling with the smell of the river and the damp earth and the oil burning in the lamps. He thinks, in a vague and unformed way, about the passage of time, about how this day has moved from dawn to noon to evening, and how tomorrow another day will come, and another after that, each one following the same general pattern, and yet each one slightly different, marked by small changes, small variations. There is comfort in this, in the rhythm of it, in the knowledge that the work will continue, that the garden will be watered, that the lamps will be lit, that the stars will rise and the sun will return. After a while, he picks up his brush again and returns to his work. But now he works even more slowly than before, his movements almost dreamlike. He is tired, genuinely tired, in the way that comes at the end of a long, hot day. A tiredness that is not unpleasant, but rather deeply satisfying. The kind of tiredness that promises good sleep. The papyrus before him is nearly complete. Only a few more lines, a few more characters, and then he will be finished for the night. The servant who tends the channels has risen from his bench and is making a final tour of the garden, checking to see that the small gates are properly closed, that no water is being wasted, that everything is as it should be. He moves like a shadow among the trees, his footsteps barely audible, and when he is satisfied, he too withdraws, heading toward the small building at the back of the property where he sleeps with the other servants of the household. The garden is very quiet now, except for the insects and the occasional call of a night bird. The flames of the oil lamps burn steadily, their light creating a small circle of warmth and visibility in the gathering darkness. Beyond this circle, the shadows are deep and soft, and the shapes of the trees are indistinct, blending into the night. The scribe makes the last mark on his papyrus, a small notation at the bottom of the final column. He sets down his brush and looks at what he has done. The sheet is filled with neat writing, each character properly formed, each line properly spaced. It is good work, work that will endure, work that will be read and understood and relied upon. He allows himself a small moment of satisfaction, and then he carefully lifts the sheet and sets it aside to dry, placing it on a reed mat where the air can circulate around it. He stands slowly, feeling the stiffness in his legs from sitting for so long. He stretches again, rolling his shoulders, bending to touch his toes, straightening with a soft exhalation. Then he turns and walks slowly through the garden, passing between the rows of palms, his sandals whispering on the packed earth of the path. He stops for a moment at the eastern wall, where the gate stands open to the river. The Nile is dark now, a band of black beneath the stars, but he can see the faint gleam of starlight on the water, a scattering of silver points that move and shift with the current. The air coming off the river is cool and slightly damp, and it carries with it the smell of the reeds and the mud and the fish that swim in the dark water below. He stands there for a long moment, breathing in the night air, listening to the small sounds around him, the rustle of leaves, the chirp of crickets, the distant call of a dog from the village, the splash of a fish breaking the surface somewhere out in the current. He feels peaceful, more peaceful than he has felt all day, and he is aware of a deep gratitude for this place, for this life, for the simple fact of being here, alive, in this moment, under these stars. Finally, he turns and walks back toward the house. He pauses at the pavilion to collect his writing tools, wrapping the brushes carefully in a piece of linen, covering the palette. pouring the water from the pot onto the roots of a nearby fig tree. He extinguishes one of the lamps by placing a small clay cover over it, cutting off the air to the flame. The other lamps he leaves burning, knowing that someone will attend to them later, when the household retires for the night. He enters the house through a small doorway, passing from the cool darkness of the garden into the even darker interior. Inside, the air is still and warm, though not as hot as it was during the day. There are a few lamps burning here as well, their light showing the simple furnishings of the main room: low stools and cushions, a few wooden chests, a loom where his wife does weaving during the day. The walls are plastered and painted white, and on one wall there is a small shrine with an offering of flowers and a figurine of the household god, a protector of this place and these people. His wife is sitting near one of the lamps, working on a piece of embroidery. She looks up as he enters and smiles, a quiet, tired smile that matches his own mood. They do not speak, but there is communication in the look they exchange, a shared understanding of the day's work done, the evening's peace earned. She sets aside her embroidery and rises, moving toward the back of the house where the sleeping rooms are. He follows her, carrying his writing tools, which he will store in their proper place before he sleeps. The sleeping room is small and simple, with a bed of woven rope strung on a wooden frame, covered with linen sheets and a light blanket. There is a window high in the wall, open to the night air, and through this window he can see a patch of sky scattered with stars. He sets down his tools and removes his sandals, placing them neatly beside the bed. He loosens his kilt and drapes it over a wooden peg on the wall. Then he lies down on the bed, feeling the firmness of it beneath him, the slight give of the rope webbing, the smoothness of the linen against his skin. His wife lies down beside him, and for a moment they lie there in the darkness, not touching, but aware of each other's presence, each one's breathing gradually slowing and deepening. Outside, the garden continues its quiet existence. The insects continue their singing. The night birds continue their hunting. The stars continue their slow wheel across the sky. The Nile flows on, as it has flowed for countless ages, carrying with it the water that gives life to this land, the silt that enriches the soil, the fish that feed the people who live along its banks. The oil lamps in the garden burn lower, their flames growing smaller as the oil is consumed. One by one, over the course of the night, they will gutter and go out, leaving only the starlight and the thin crescent of the moon that is rising now in the east. But for now, they still burn, casting their gentle light on the leaves and the flowers and the dark, rich earth. The scribe's breathing has become very slow and very deep. He is drifting now on the edge of sleep, his mind still holding faint images of the day, the papyrus, the brush, the light on the water, the heron standing in the shallows. These images grow softer and less distinct, like reflections in water when the wind ripples the surface, and then they fade altogether, and there is only darkness and warmth and the deep, restful quiet of sleep. In the garden, a slight breeze stirs the palm fronds, and they rustle softly, a sound like a distant voice, speaking words of comfort and reassurance. The river continues its ancient journey, flowing from the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean Sea, carrying the life of the land with it. And the stars continue their slow, majestic dance across the heavens, turning as they have turned since the beginning of time, marking the hours and the seasons and the years with their silent, constant light. The night deepens, the household sleeps, the garden rests, gathering strength for another day. And in the darkness, in the quiet, in the stillness that settles over this small corner of the world, there is peace. Everything is well. Everything is as it should be. The day is done, and the night is gentle, and there is rest for all who seek it. The river flows, the stars wheel, the garden breathes, and in the deep, dark comfort of the night, there is nothing to fear, nothing to strive for, nothing but the quiet assurance that morning will come again, and with it, another day, another evening, another night of rest. Sleep now. Sleep deeply. There is nothing more to do tonight. The work is finished. The lamps are lit. The garden is tended. All is well. Rest.